I'm Mark Deleon. I'm one of the archaeologists here at Archaeology, and I've been here for 4 years. And came here in another life. I was involved in federal programs and compliance, and for some reason PUD thought that was an appropriate use of me. We'll see. And, well, get the first slide anyways. And for some time now, 4 years that I've been here, where we've begun implementing the Section 106 based program. Rex is continuing to tell us that the archaeologists that people want to hear about the cultural resource program and are eager to hear about some of the results, conclusions, the synthesis, and the like, which is kind of hard to do when you just started. So I assume everybody is here to hear about the program. They're not here for that, Rex. Here for something else. But over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to try to breeze through 130 years of physical India, River archaeology in Still County. I'm going to come back to this particular illustration. It's quickly it was a Western artist lived in Portland. He did the mural that we'll see here at the Wanapum Heritage Center. This one struck me as particularly appropriate for archaeologists to stare at quite a while, but I'm going to come back to it. And in short, I'm going to try to give a brief review of the current status of the Grand Canyon PUD. Essentially, it's a Section 106 program. I see a lot of people here that I know, and most of you have been in and around applying archaeology, so I won't go into Section 106. Those that don't know what it is, come see us afterwards. We can give you the 5-minute. But over the next 30 minutes or so, move forward. Over the next 30 minutes or so, I'd like to set the historical context of the archaeological interest in the Priest Rapids, Middle Columbia River. Priest Rapids, when you go back in time, other than the native use, it also had quite a focus of irrigation and hydropower developments that began from about the end of the 19th century onward, and it continued in ever increasing kind of forces. Also, you probably aware by now, I will go in a little bit to public power, how public power has appropriated essentially by federal license the resources of the Middle Columbia River, but I'm going to focus on archaeology. And that archaeology has some links to the license requirements. In fact, it has a lot of links to the license requirements. And our perfunctory vicinity map, where we are, the Columbia River watershed, all those little red and yellow dots are hydro dams. The arrow points to where we're at. I think probably you know where we're at. Anyways, and then to to get it just a little bit closer to home. The pre-traffic project, the two dams, the transmission line, and then about 5 miles below the traffic drainage. But it extends from about, excuse me, it extends from river mile 453.4, which is the tail race of Rock Island Dam, up in just outside of Wanapum, which happens to be the oldest hydro development on the river. It's maintained by Lankland PUD, and it extends down through mile 394, which is the tailwater for the pre-traffic dam. So that's roughly 58.5 miles of the river. I don't seem to have the touch. But going to go through just a few statistics about the project itself. This is the area that we're involved in. I think it's been expressed earlier today, but the total project acreage, and this is, when you say acreage, you mean project, you mean that has been licensed by the Federal Energy Resources Commission. A total of 34,480 acres, but that also includes water, surface water acres. So that breaks it a little bit more, as you can see over on your right side of the screen. The different acreages, the surface acreages for the Wanapum and the pre-traffic project, the land acreage for the transmission line. There's roughly 3,400 acres of federal land and almost 3,000 state municipal. Fair amount of private, and Branson indeed has title over 600. Those numbers go up and down. And within the Section 106 process that we started back in 99 or so, the earth's potential effect, and that number still fluctuates a little bit, is almost 13,000 acres. So just to start on the archaeology, and again, just archaeology, we'll start with the beginning. Perhaps dramatic interest in archaeology. And to understand where it began, I need to back up. We'll start with the U.S. Army and the Department of Columbia. Those of you that are conversant in Washington history probably remember General Howard, who is on my right. And he didn't have a whole lot to do with the project, but he's somewhat of a colorful character that sort of set the tone, I think, for this Department of Columbia, which was he was ministered out of Vancouver. And General Howard was, he had a couple of mishaps in the Civil War. Kind of blew a couple of battles, Chickamauga, Gettysburg, but nevertheless, they kept promoting them. He was followed by General Miles on the other side. General Miles was the Army officer who, I guess, claim to fame was having chased down Chief Joseph and his band as he tried to escape on Kansas to get away and find a different health. But the man in the middle, Captain E.L. Huggins. Captain Huggins was the assistant inspector He was here for a couple of years, but he made the first archaeological observation that I can find, and which is spelled out there in the middle, moving up the sandy shore of the Columbia River, of the Columbia, strewn with beautiful arrow and spearheads of obsidian and other translucent materials. And that seems to me to be an interesting observation for an Army officer. He noted that while he was he wanted to go visit Smahala at Priest Rapids, and this was something that came to mind. Although he wrote this about 1882. He's writing about 1882, although he's writing, the actual writing was done in about 1891 in a journal called, it was called Outward Monthly, or Outbound Monthly. Okay. As the focus of water developments, power developments, and this is right at Priest Rapids. And there were some private schemes that failed in the late 1800s. Interestingly, the U.S. Reclamation Service, now the U.S. Reclamation, made a survey for a couple of years, 1992 and 1904, and developed some plans for irrigation works using canals and pumps. Later on, the Hanford Irrigation Power Company built a power plant at Priest Rapids. That was absorbed by the Priest Rapids Irrigation District, which here last year presented detailed that particular project, which was across the street for the most part. And then the Hanford Land and Power Plant itself was condemned by the Hanford Act in 1943, and then later it was acquired, reserved in Maine, first by Hanford, and then transferred to Grant County PUD, where it was summarily destroyed, and now it lies behind the restricted now. And somewhat old picture, but this is actually what remains of the first hydropower facility on the Columbia River. And that's looking across to the west, at this time. So, from about the turn of the century, and be the turn of the 20th century now, up in maybe another 55 years past that, there was some archaeological interest. Some of the kind of familiar characters that spend much time in Washington will recognize. Harlan I. Smith, although his work on Priest Rapids and thereabouts appears in a volume on Yakima Valley. Petroglyph studies by Thomas Kane and Harold Cundy, and like Krieger. Activity was responsible for actually getting the funding that built the dam. And he passed away about 1977. And also, not an archaeologist, but I said I was going to try to focus on archaeology, but we also really can't talk about this part of the world without also discussing Flick Wheeler here. He wrote photographs and notes and the like. A lot of technical headway allowed, but it's not working on the graphics name. Now, the first major federal project that spawned quite a bit of archaeological work was, of course, the Corps of Engineers. They first thought they would erect one high dam. The design, I believe, is issued about 1948. And if it was had been constructed, we would be underwater right now. But nevertheless, there was some archaeological work that followed that quite a bit. Some of these people will come to mind, again, those of you that spent much time in Eastern Washington. And principally through the University of Washington, Douglas College, John Campbell, for fairly intensive survey. And I was able to recognize Kaywood Shiner did an assessment really of Campbell's work. Earl Swanson, principally his dissertation where he focused on cave sites further up above Creek Rapids. And then we can get into the era of, shall we say, Grant County PUD work licensing and design. And although that started in the 40s, actually thinking about doing feasibility studies, engineering plans, and the like for what became the two dams. The license itself was issued in 1955, 50-year license. And then the archaeological work was done. Robert Ringo, University of Washington, had a multi-year project, excavated a number of sites while the dams were being constructed. And his work, the sites he worked on, are now underwater as well. But there was quite a few students and people affiliated with that work you may or may not recognize as well. Dissertations, theses, even class projects in the case of Susan Barrow with a documentation project in Whale Island. And then Washington Archaeological Society. They were sort of in the background in a way of some fairly significant work. What comes to mind is Charles Nelson, Sunset Creek, Wilhelmine Bar, if you're now at the door of the theater or look across the river, you're looking at it. William Massey and Nelson as well. KT6, which is down in Green School, under I think for the material or the deal at the property now, David Rice. He worked with these guys as just a young man, and I'll let him elaborate on that at some point. But when but moving along with Grant PUD's continued continued tweaking of the project itself, and during around 1980, there was a proposal to raise the reservoirs, and that spawned site survey by Randall Shaw. Then at WSU, and that was followed by work by Glenn Hartman at AHS at Eastern Washington University. Went through excavated, tested several sites that Randall had And is Randall here today, chance? You can see him walk in. But I want to make one maybe shout out to his staff. He was the first person who actually posited some research questions, and they're relative today. Climate change was one. And but then he went to the University of New Mexico, so we might expect that. Now, even as far back, well, the 1955 license was a 50-year license, expired in 2005. So even in the 80s, there was plans for us to apply for the next term, the next license. And Susan Freiberg, again, probably many of you know, did a multi-year resurvey, relocating sites, doing condition assessments, updating site forms. And she was focusing on erosion and the like, but that's yet another body of archaeological work that is kind of going into the mix. And we're entering into the phase that the relicensing effort that's developed into the program that we're now attempting to implement. In 1999, that's when the Section 106 process Section 106 process for the next license, the one we're at now, the one now that began, and two major efforts went into that. One was an overview, which was completed. It's on my website. Completed in May 2001. It's actually still not a bad little work, and it's available on Rankin County PUD website. Anybody might be interested. There was also a site survey done of the project area, that roughly 12 to 13,000 acres of land adjacent to the reservoir. Resurveyed. Well, it was roughly, I forget the exact statistics, I think about 89% or so is what the investigators estimated they had done. And Dr. Hackenberger is here to probably elaborate on that if anybody has any questions on what you might have done. So we're still wondering sometimes.
I contain privileged information. My lips are sealed.
But needless to say, they found a lot of sites. There was a lot of sites in this reservoir resulting from all the previous work from John Campbell to Ringo's work, to Randall Shaw's work. And what that gave us is one giant Section 106 compliance. Still trying to move forward. There must be some sort of tool moving forward. This is where things get kind of dry. I'm sorry, but that's where we wind up the time when we discuss cultural resource programs. In this particular case, first for the lead agency, they delegated the conservation task primarily to us, PUD. The PUD set out to form a group of consulting parties, normal Section 106 consulting parties, that is federal agencies, state agencies. And the whole goal was to develop a programmatic agreement amongst all those consulting parties as a roadmap to move forward. With varying degrees of success. The programmatic agreement, the cover sheet on the opposite side, was signed in April of 2007. And I'm not going to read it. Although you can get it on the Grant PUD website. That's what I'm giving you. But job number one, once the programmatic agreement was developed, the programmatic agreement, again, essentially a roadmap as to how sites will be treated, evaluated, dispute resolution procedures, and but following that, the HPMP, Short Properties Management Plan, was seen as the sort of guiding document. The last connection license was issued in April of 2008 for a term of 44 years. And of significance to our program, our cultural resource program, is the enumeration of the development, number one, the development of the HPMP, and then 6 different tasks that talk about various management measures and site preservation measures and how national register eligibility and like testing and then eligibility and national register nominations. And those are all combined and discussed within the HPMP. And I don't know if that's on the Grant PUD website or not yet. But and I'm not going to read those to you, but some interesting developments came out of just that HPMP, or I'm sorry, PA 6 has followed. That's really what we've been working on since the license was issued in April of 2008. Now the challenges. We have a few. To begin with, the clock for task accomplishment began April 2008, even though the PA itself was signed a year earlier. But the license award date in 2008 meant that Grant County PUD missed its 2005 license issue date, but FERC didn't seem to mind a whole lot about that. Responsibilities that came out of that, we had to have a final HPMP prepared and in place within 1 year. The first thing we did was to ask for an extension, and we got it. The challenge is additional cultural properties, not only here but elsewhere, and we're aware of that, and are slow to kind of get that into the program. Even at the time, in 2008, when the license itself was issued, really the magnitude of the work was not very well understood, either internally or even amongst staff archaeologists. And last but not least, we wound up in a programmatic breathing. I realize this stuff is really broad, but actually insisted we needed to know it. So, national and historic places, determination of eligibility. Now that is really a key component of our program. And right now, we have, we're really proud in a way to report that we have evaluated ahead of schedule all the sites within that universe of 1,250 sites or so that is available to access and evaluate. We've got consensus determinations from our consulting parties on most of those. Reports filled up quite a bit and takes a while to go through. Again, then we've completed testing of all the sites really where we have had permission to do so. Curiously, a large inventory of sites on state land, particularly Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. There's approximately 260 sites, and they don't want us to test on their land, so we won't. And but we'll treat the sites as national register eligible, and we'll have to deal with them in the project this case-by-case way, depending on the project. We're hoping that will change at some point. Some numbers. I guess I can move on then, with all the numbers. I'll just go ahead and back up. Just wanted to point out a few things. Out of the 1,230 sites that are working total, and again, they shift periodically for different reasons, and 373 have been determined eligible. You can see 513 have been determined ineligible, and this is all a result of test excavations and analysis and so on. And we've got the 182 have not been determined eligible, but we're treating these eligible because they're in areas that they're not able to access. Some of those are on private land, some private landowners are not keen on having archaeological work on the land, and so we got that. There's also quite a large number of sites called determined undetermined. And I'll follow up on that. Can't quite explain it. So, where do we go from here? In just a few minutes here, I've given you just a really quick summary through, again, 130 years, but tried to focus somewhat on the last 10, which is essentially a cultural resource management function. And that's not really very satisfying to the archaeological community generally. It's not necessarily satisfying to us, professional archaeological staff here at the PUD. But the PUD nevertheless has spent several $1 million so far. For example, I failed to elaborate on site preservation measures that have been done up and down the river, which was a major task, but perhaps next year. Most of the work then, as an paperwork. And again, that's not really very professionally satisfying, but we're going to move forward the best we can. All those tasks that were enumerated a few slides back that are in the PA, the local required progress reports, accomplishment reports, and the file reserve. You can see those on the first website. But the PUD, nevertheless, they placed in charge of cultural resource management and science function here. A small cadre of archaeologists, of which I'm one. Aaron Jones is another. Brett Lynn, who's not here. Cultural resource manager. Aaron Murphy, we call him the half of archaeologists because he finished his graduate training. And PUD is investing quite a bit of money in cultural resource program and management program to make sure we meet the clinical law, but also with some archaeologists. And but the cultural resource management program here includes not only the archaeologists I just mentioned, but I think the term of art now is knowledge workers. But this is actually the organizational chart for the cultural resources department here. It looks like something pulled off of one of the manuals at the Army Training Center. But there's variously 2 dozen to 30 people that occupy a desk or a seat or at least a place on the staffing chart for the cultural resource program. The large majority of those are within what we're actually calling the cultural resource program. That's living history, living native history, and part of the language program, the Heritage Center, repository, the river patrol itself is another aspect. I think they're out here in the display. And we hope, as archaeologists, that we can get this into work sometime. We hope we can develop some research questions that will mean something not only to the profession, but that can also be translated to the public and for the people. And we have some very generic ones that, again, are very satisfying, culture training, the use of stone technology through time, those types of things. But those, I think, are some of the more exciting, more professionally rewarding from an archaeological point of view, and also trying to integrate some of the modern concepts that are actually coming out of this sort of hybridization we're having ourselves wade through with regulation and then native programs on the other hand, trying to sort of find a workable program for knowledge, additional knowledge. And so that's all I have.
Questions that you might answer that you might have. There's a question back over there.
Yes, in your presentation, you talked about testing at sites. Could you elaborate a little bit on what these tests might be? What for?
The tests were very minimally invasive archaeological excavations We had established a protocol for testing, depended on kind of a mix of subsurface explorations as well as mapping the surface. Subsurface exploration using a combination of telescopes at intervals, as well as excavation units, and then screening that and collecting the material and analyzing it. And so it's pretty standard archaeological technique, although it was fairly small scale because it's simply testing. And the idea was to, within that protocol, the testing protocol, the idea was to identify criteria, artifact features, varied soil horizons that might qualify the site for national register eligibility. So, in a nutshell, that's the testing program.
All right, thank you, Mark. You got one over there? Oh, David?
Mark, your table indicated 500 some sites that were ineligible for the next level. Could you explain for the audience what that really means? What is the prognosis for an ineligible site?
How much time do we have? Well, again, following on the question, or somewhat, I should say the answer to the question was asked back here. The protocol, the testing protocol set out certain criteria that we would look for that, if seen, would qualify as an eligible site, and that included, I'm working from memory, diagnostic artifacts, buried soil horizons, impact features, or features of any kind, whether it was, say, a hard, fired rock, cluster, and also the testing had to go down to a certain depth without recovering any artifact whatsoever below a certain depth. I believe it was 20 centimeters. And a fairly minimal set of criteria for establishing the criteria or the eligibility. And some also, a number of sites were already determined eligible because they possessed